A seance has been held in the great house at Collinwood. A seance which has suspended time and space and sent one girl on an uncertain and frightening journey into the past, back to the Collins family in the year 1795. In the midst of a long reign of evil and terror, Victoria Winters is forced to defend herself against a charge of witchcraft.
And there, late last evening in the woods, not half a mile from the Collins mansion, we discovered the lifeless body of Abigail Collins. Long will I remember the look of unspeakable horror frozen into the features of a once kind and gentle face. It was as though she had been confronted by evil itself. And I submit to this court that that is precisely what she did see. That there is one in this court who wanted to see Abigail Collins dead. One who summoned up all the powers endowed upon her by Satan himself and used them to strike down a gentle and God-fearing woman. I charge the murder of Abigail Collins to the witch on trial in this court, Victoria Winters.
Your Honor, I ask the court to strike Mr. Trask's last remarks.
On what grounds, sir?
On the grounds that everything you said is irrelevant to these proceedings, and you know it.
It is a known fact that Miss Winters hated Abigail Collins.
Yes, but that does not mean she caused her death.
In my opinion, Mr. Bradford, there is a possibility...
Opinion is not evidence, Mr. Trask.
What more evidence do we need than the terrible series of deaths that has plagued the Collins family since that woman came to them?
Gentlemen, we have had quite enough bickering between the two of you. It is for the court to weigh the evidence that is presented here.
Your Honor, the court has already seen the medical report stating that Abigail Collins died of heart failure.
Your Honor, the medical record also makes it clear that Miss Collins was in perfect health. Her heart had never bothered her once in her life.
I'm sorry, Mr. Trask. I must allow Mr. Bradford's objections to stand, unless you can produce more positive evidence than you have presented thus far.
With all due respect, Your Honor, does it not seem strange to you that Miss Collins should die so suddenly, alone in the middle of the woods?
Well, it does seem strange indeed. I remember well how vigorous and healthy she appeared when she took the witness stand a few days ago.
Well, sir, then I submit that...
However, there has not been sufficient evidence to warrant an additional charge of murder against the defendant.
And what would the court consider to be sufficient evidence?
If the prosecution can produce a witness to support its allegations that the defendant had reason to kill Miss Collins, the court would be willing to hear such testimony.
Your Honor, if Victoria Winters were going to kill Abigail Collins, doesn't it stand to reason that she would have done it before Abigail testified, not after?
Your point is a logical one, Mr. Bradford. Unfortunately, human actions are not always based on such logic.
Your Honor, I ask that the court be recessed in order that I may find the required witness.
The request is granted. The court will recess until 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Are you really that worried?
Yes, a little. Trask seemed very confident about finding a new witness.
Well, it's just going to be impossible for him to find anyone who can swear under oath that I killed Abigail.
He doesn't have to go that far. All he has to do is find someone who's willing to prove that you had a good reason for saying that, for killing Abigail Collins.
Well, he's not going to be able to do that either.
Abigail Collins was cruel to you from the very first moment you came, wasn't she?
Yes.
Did you ever speak of this to anyone at Collinwood?
Her name came up in the conversations all the time.
With whom?
Jeremiah, Barnabas, the Countess Dupre, Ben Stokes.
The Countess Dupre's already testified. Jeremiah, Barnabas are dead. Stokes refused. It could be that Trask has gotten Stokes to testify against you.
No. Ben Stokes hated the sight of Abigail.
Enough to kill her.
No. Peter, Ben is really a very gentle man.
Yes, with a prison record.
Now, that's the kind of talk I'd expect from Trask, but not from you.
I'm sorry. I suppose the things that are happening in this court are finally beginning to get the better of me.
Trask really has you frightened, hasn't he?
Yesterday, the main witness against you was alive. Today, she's dead.
But you and I both know that I didn't kill her.
What we need is a witness of our own, somebody who can prove that you didn't hate Abigail enough to kill her. Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I'll take you back to jail now.
Are you sure he said he was coming?
Is Lieutenant Collins, Lieutenant Forbes, a man of his word?
I think so.
Why didn't you tell me about his involvement before?
I didn't think it was important.
Vicky, don't you understand? If he's willing to testify, it may be exactly what we need.
Why?
Lieutenant, come in.
Thank you. Hello, Miss Winters.
Hello, Lieutenant. Thank you very much for taking the time to come here.
No, it's my pleasure, although I still don't know why you sent for me.
Look, I don't have much time, Lieutenant, so I have to hurry. Why don't you sit down? Are you aware that Abigail Collins is dead?
Oh, when did that happen?
Last night, about a half a mile from Collinwood.
Oh, was she murdered?
The medical report said that she died of a heart attack. But, Trask is convinced that she's been murdered. And he's also convinced that Miss Winters did it.
Well, how could she have if she's been confined to a cell here in the jail?
I'm afraid Mr. Trask doesn't accept that kind of logic. He's sure that Miss Winters is a witch, and that a witch can be in two places at the same time.
Well, he hasn't convinced the court of that, has he?
Not yet, but he's bearing down on it. That's why I sent for you.
I don't understand.
I want you to testify on behalf of Miss Winters.
Me? What help could I possibly be? I mean, I'm sure that Vicky didn't kill Abigail Collins, but then the court would never take my word for that. And after all, I was in the village all day yesterday and last night.
Look, I only want you to be a character witness. You can just answer a few questions, that's all.
Well, what kind of questions?
You remember that Abigail Collins was the first person to accuse Miss Winters of being a witch.
Yes?
You also remember that, look, you were the only one who was willing to help her, weren't you?
Yes, but I don't see what difference that's going to make.
Look, I want you to go to court, and I want you to tell them that despite the persecution that Miss Winters has gone through, that you never saw anything, and she never said anything at all that would lead you to believe that she would eventually kill Abigail Collins. Look, would you do that?
Well, I suppose I could if you think it's absolutely necessary.
You seem to have some serious reservation about it.
No, not really. It's just that I think I might not be as much help to you as you think.
What do you mean?
Well, I'd rather not go into details, Mr. Bradford, for personal reasons, but the fact is that I'm no longer on very good terms with the Collins family. so that any testimony I give now might be viewed as well, something less than objective.
Mr. Trask, what is it?
I didn't realize this room was occupied. Forgive me.
You can have the room in another few minutes.
Thank you.
Now, Lieutenant, it doesn't matter whether or not you're on good terms with the Collins family. We need your testimony.
You sure there's no one who can be of more help to you than I?
Look, if we could get someone, it wouldn't make any difference. We don't have enough time. You only have to tell the truth.
All right. I'll do my best.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
The court is in session. Mr. Trask, you may resume.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to call Victoria Winters to the stand.
May I ask for what purpose?
You may not, Mr. Bradford. I am within my rights.
May I have the court remind Mr. Trask that Miss Winters also has some rights. She does not have to say anything which might be self-incriminating.
The court assures counsel it will protect the defendant's rights. Miss Winters may take the stand. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Miss Winters, it was Abigail Collins who first recognized you as being a witch. Is that...
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Mr. Trask, the court has warned you repeatedly about your manner of questioning. The defendant must be regarded as innocent until proven guilty. You will bear that in mind.
It was Abigail Collins who first accused you of being a witch, was it not?
Yes.
What was your reaction to that?
Tried to convince her that it wasn't true.
Didn't you hate her for what she was trying to do to you?
No.
Come now, Miss Winters. You're not going to tell the court that you loved her.
Well, no, but...
Then you must have hated her. Enough to kill her.
Objection!
Sustained.
You must have had some feelings towards her.
Yes, I did, but...
What were they?
Well, I don't know. I was confused by her attitude. And I was frightened by her.
Did you ever threaten to get revenge for what she was doing to you?
No.
You never told anyone that you would be glad to see Abigail Collins dead?
I never said anything like that to anyone.
Do you recognize this object?
Yes. It's a charm bracelet.
Is it your charm bracelet?
Yes.
I offer the bracelet in evidence, Your Honor. And I call the court's attention to its interesting design. You will notice that each of the figures represent a sign of the zodiac, a symbol of the devil himself.
Your Honor,
Miss-
all of this proves nothing.
Mr. Bradford, please.
I want you to tell the court where you got that bracelet. Well, Miss Winters, where did you get it?
I can't tell you.
Then perhaps I can tell you. It was given to you by Satan himself.
Your Honor!
Where the bracelet came from is a matter of conjecture, Mr. Trask.
But where it was found last night, Your Honor, is a cold fact. It was found on the body of the murdered Abigail Collins.
Abigail Collins had that bracelet long before last night. And I thought this court was going to keep Mr. Trask here from pursuing the matter of Abigail Collins' death until he had sufficient evidence to prove that she's involved.
I have complied with the court's wishes, Mr. Bradford. I am about to introduce a new witness.
Who is this new witness, Mr. Trask?
Lieutenant Nathan Forbes.
Your Honor, you must not swear in this witness.
Why not, Mr. Bradford?
Because he has promised to testify for Miss Winters.
Are you suggesting that the witness was coerced into testifying for the prosecution?
I don't know how Mr. Trask has applied his pressure.
Your Honor, I can assure the court that the witness has not been pressured in any way.
Is that true, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
Place your hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Lieutenant, do you know the defendant, Victoria Winters?
Yes, I do.
Where did you first meet her?
At the Collins Mansion.
Were you aware that Abigail Collins was convinced that Victoria Winters was a witch and was determined to punish her for that crime?
Yes, I was.
Did you ever have occasion to discuss this matter with Miss Winters?
We discussed it on several occasions.
And did you ever discuss Miss Winters' feelings towards Abigail Collins?
Yes, we did.
Would you tell the court what her feelings were?
Well, she made no secret of the fact that she hated Abigail.
That's not true!
Defendant will be silent.
And, did she ever say anything of a threatening nature pertaining to Abigail Collins?
Yes, she did.
Would you, tell the court what she said, as you remember it?
She was in the stable behind the old house, hiding from Abigail and from you. I found her there and had a long conversation with her. In the course of it, she called Abigail Collins a religious fanatic.
He's lying!
Silence, Miss Winters.
Go on, Lieutenant.
She said that if anyone deserved to be dead and buried, it was Abigail Collins.
Lieutenant Forbes, didn't the defendant also say that if she had it within her power, she would not hesitate to strike Abigail Collins dead?
Yes, that's what she said.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Bradford, do you wish to cross-examine the witness?
Yes, sir, I do. Under what circumstances did you have most of your conversations with Miss Collins?
I don't know what you mean.
Isn't it true that you befriended her shortly after she was accused of being a witch?
Well, yes.
And this man over here, didn't he take her into the woods and tie her like some sort of crazy animal to a tree?
I object to that statement!
Mr. Trask, did you or did you not take her into the woods and tie her to a tree?
I was performing my solemn duty to the Almighty.
Your actions speak for themselves. Now, tell me, Lieutenant, did you go into that woods and did you release her from that tree?
Yes, but it was at the insistence of Barnabas Collins.
And then did you take her to the unfinished house at Collinwood and give her shelter there?
Again, it was Barnabas who insisted on
Yes
that.
or no, Lieutenant?
Yes.
And for the next few days, did you give her shelter and food?
Yes.
And was the reason that you did all this because you were certain that she was not a witch? That's the reason, isn't it? Well, Lieutenant?
No.
You mean you took care of her and all of the rest, knowing that she was not that she was a witch? Now, that doesn't make sense, Lieutenant.
I was convinced from the beginning that witchcraft was being practiced by someone at Collinwood. Now, since Miss Winters was the last person to arrive there, she was the logical suspect and I did suspect her.
Well, perhaps you can tell us why you took care of her then.
I had no choice.
What do you mean?
I told you before, it was Barnabas who was convinced that she wasn't a witch. I valued Barnabas's friendship. He made it very clear to me that that friendship was jeopardized unless I helped him protect Miss Winters.
That's all a lie! Why are you doing this to me, Lieutenant? Why?
Well,